You're listening to Raising Anchor on 990 WBOB. Welcome to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show with Matt Entrican and Jason Carey. Your home for news, analysis, and everything Rhode Island FC. Each week, they take you inside the locker room, inside the tactics, and inside the storyline shaping RIFC. Now, here's Matt and Jason.
Rhode Island FC gets set to take on Birmingham Legion on the road this weekend. What reinforcements are on the way for the Amber and Blue, and can they extend their win streak to 3 games for the first time ever since 2024? Or does the team down in Magic City with Jay Heaps look to repeat their earlier success in just one of 2 wins on the season against Rhode Island FC? We've got your preview for that match. A lot of news around the league to talk about, including secret or maybe not so secret entrepreneurs and investors inside Rhode Island FC now revealed to the masses. But before we get anywhere and all of that, first got to join Jason Carey, co-host with the most. How are you doing, my friend?
Excited. There is a lot to talk about tonight.
a lot. So for those that normally expect the 60-minute format, throw that out the window. Prepare for 2 parts, part of it on your drive into work, and then the other part on the way home, because there is a lot to talk about. And of course, for such a stacked occasion, we've got to bring the big guns into the show, and I can't think of anyone better than, fresh off of his local World Cup broadcast coverage, your favorite RIFC play-by-play shot caller and self-proclaimed steak king enthusiast, the one and only Tom Quinlan, rejoining the show. Tom, how have you been, my friend?
This has been my favorite week since covering Rhode Island FC, since it all started. This might be up there. Well, getting to the USL Cup Finals is probably the number 1 week. This is easily number 2 for a myriad of reasons outside of what the BS we've had to deal with today. That we won this one today, boys.
We're going to get into so much in this programming, but we do have to start with the chaos, with the controversy, as Tom just alluded to, or maybe the lack thereof, because if you've been following this club for long enough, a lot of what's been transpiring over the last 24 hours really hasn't been new news to the ever faithful, especially the listeners of this particular show. And listen, I'm glad that Rhode Island FC made its way to the top of the sports news cycle in the last 24 hours. Unfortunately, it has nothing to do with the performances on the pitch. So let's get right into this. And for those that haven't been living under a rock, Jason, what's the gist of what's been happening in these last 24 hours?
Yeah, so the TLDR here, NBA superstar and Clippers small forward Kwahi Leonard has been identified as a previously undisclosed minority investor in Rhode Island FC in Centerville Bank Stadium. Based on reporting from Pablo Torres Finds Out podcast and additional stories provided by WPRI 12, the reporting frames a narrative that Rhode Island FC investment did not emerge in isolation, but emerged as part of an already existing NBA investigation into whether the Clippers circumvented the salary cap. The report further infers that state officials, specifically Governor Dan McKee, may have had some direct knowledge or involvement in the ownership and potential money laundering. I guess Kwahi Leonard is our Secret Santa this year.
Or what is it, the White Yankee gifts, the secret swaps? Listen, Tom, we brought you on specifically because if there's someone better when it comes to bridging the gap between Rhode Island FC and all things politics in Rhode Island, it has to be you. So make this make sense for the uninitiated. And why the hell are we sitting here tonight talking about an NBA small forward that is on the other side of the country?
Yeah, so here's the way I look at this. I think the simplest way to boil this story down is that Brett Johnson has a lot of connections. And Brett Johnson has worked his rear end off to bring in, I'll keep it clean for you guys. He's to bring in as many investors from as many corners of the country as possible to make this work, to make Rhode Island FC a successful franchise, not for the short term, but the long term. And from what I've gathered, and I think the key things here is that, you know, as Jason brought up before, it's the reporting from Pablo Torre was made to make it seem like This Kawhi Leonard deal is tied up in the NBA investigation into how maybe the Clippers circumvented the salary cap. The little, small fine print, and the devil's always in the details, the investment came pre whatever Kawhi Leonard got involved in with Steve Ballmer and this aspiration thing.
But Tom, it was only 8 days. So when there's only 8 days between two deals, clearly there has to be an established link. Everything has to be connected in this world. There's only 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon.
Well, and this is where I appreciate having an owner. And granted, let me just get this out there right now. I am the play-by-play announcer for Rhode Island FC. So technically, I do get paid by the club. So you're not going to get me on here tonight to bash the club, which, by the way, if I felt like there was something that, could force me to have to be objective, I wouldn't be on here. I don't think there's any there here. And Brett Johnson has been very transparent about his connections to Kawhi Leonard and his uncle, which I think is being lost in the sauce here in this entire story that's being curated by PRI and Pablo Torre reports. So this deal, whatever Brett Johnson's coordination is with Kawhi Leonard to get him to be an investor here with Rhode Island FC, is completely separate of Steve Ballmer, the Los Angeles Clippers. This is a personal relationship that Brett Johnson has with Kawhi Leonard's uncle, who is also his agent, and Kawhi himself. So this feels like this is coming out of Kawhi's money. This isn't about, giving Kawhi money to get him onto a board somewhere. It's no. Kawhi invested into Rhode Island FC. He used however much money he has in the bank to be now, and we don't know how much money it is. And to be honest, I had no idea Kawhi Leonard was an investor. I never really dug into it. I didn't care about the investors. You know why? The thing got done. And all I cared about was just moving forward and making this thing successful for the future. For me, in my role with this team, it doesn't matter who the investors are. Now, I'll get into the investor part of it and why maybe this story matters in a minute. But long story short, Kawhi Leonard is one of the secret investors in Rhode Island FC with Brett Johnson and making this thing work long term. And that's about it, in my opinion. There's nothing else there.
So I want to talk about the investment in a minute.
We can get to that, and that's separate. But on the surface, with Kawhi Leonard being an investor, there is nothing more there than Brett Johnson has a relationship with the family. The uncle was able to talk to Kawhi, and they were able to convince him, hey, you want to get in on this thing. And you know what? You don't even need to have your name out there. It's going to be good long-term because it's not just a stadium, but there's also affordable housing involved in this as well. And this will come back being a good thing for you.
I appreciate that Tom called this a nothing there situation. We need to get a there sponsorship from that burger place and put this in. But,
the Kawhi Leonard nothing burger.
Why not, right? They're free marketing. Brett Johnson, make it happen. We're going to talk about the investment stuff in a little bit because I have some firsthand knowledge, both having conversations with the club today and then also just previous experiences in the past with Brett Johnson back in Los Angeles. But before we go there, want to just also quickly run down the facts, because what I don't want is, we're going to move around a lot tonight, I have a feeling.
Yeah.
So I want to establish a baseline of what we know and dispel some of the notions that have been wildly, and I mean wildly, tossed out there, some true Pepe Silva kind of conspiracy theories, and we'll go from there. So one, to Tom's point, we know that Kawhi Leonard invested in the club. We'll talk about the amount that he invested and the relationship of that investment in a bit. We know that Governor Dan McKee went to a Clippers game with Brett Johnson back in October of 2025. Now, where this whole thing skews for me is the A to Z between connecting those dots and establishing it against the other things going on with Kawhi Leonard, with the Clippers organization, and the pending NBA investigation around potential salary cap navigation. For me, the whole thing that we're going to try to talk about tonight, and the chat, if there's something that you guys want asked, throw it in there. But the real questions here are, based on Pablo Torre's reporting, based on WPRI's reporting, is there an effort to somehow convince or infer to listeners and to viewers and to their audiences that Steve Ballmer and Brett Johnson are somehow in cahoots to help navigate this salary cap dilemma because of the previous fallouts with their aspiration deal and all the things that are surrounding that within the Clippers organization in an effort to continue to compensate Leonard? Or is it something else, which inferred the other part of it being Governor McKee's inclusion in this because he either wrong time, wrong place, or it's just an actual coincidence, went to a basketball game and then invited Brett Johnson to that game. But because he bought his tickets through a Spanish marketing agency known as 380 AMK, which has direct ties to Visit Rwanda, the Clippers' next jersey sponsor, that somehow this is all Illuminati confirmed triangles. And before we go any further, we were told multiple times today, Tom, don't bring this up. Don't give this any flowers. Don't give this any attention. But the idea that there's so many far-fetched conspiracy theories out there. There were people online today insinuating that Rhode Island FC was a part of a complex bribe scandal by the Visit Rwanda Tourist Foundation to bribe Jojea Kwizera into playing for Rwanda so that they could qualify for the 2026 World Cup. However, and Jason, I see your confusion because I know you don't know about this yet. They're saying Visit Rwanda bribed Jojea in October of 2025 to play for the Rwanda national team when he'd already been playing with the Rwandan national team since 2024. And like, you ever need to bribe any player to represent their home country?
Yeah, like, who needs to be bribed to represent? Like, that's such a huge honor for a soccer player. Like, you
I'm just telling you, this is the depths we are going to go into on tonight's show about the craziness and just the sheer ludicrousness of what's happened here. So, Tom, I wanted to put those facts in because I want to make sure in case we want to maneuver around that. Yeah. Where do you want to pick up on this? Do you want to start with the actual Kwahi Leonard investment piece? Do you want to go? Okay, let's start there. So what we do know is that we've learned that it was a very small investment in comparison to some of the municipal owners and some of the very large ownership stakes that have been put into Rhode Island FC. We know that Kwahi Leonard does not have a major stake in Rhode Island FC. And then we also know that whatever that number is, that it is
$12.
It is infinitesimal to the fact that Kwahi Leonard has over $300 million in assets that he can play around with however he sees fit. Like, even if he invested $1 million into the club, and I am not saying that's what he did, but even if he had, that is still less than 1% of his total net worth invested into a club. And when you start talking about all this money to navigate salary cap, which was like something to the tune of $10 million, and you had to start three-card monting it and shuffling it across multiple companies, multiple business ventures, the idea that we parked this substantial investment, this is substantial windfall in roster salary cap relief into Rhode Island FC, it's ludicrous. It's insane that's even a notion that we have to start talking about.
Yeah, so it's a great place to start is yesterday, right? Yesterday we get the real big bombshell. I mean, it is a bombshell. Kwahi Leonard is a secret investor in Rhode Island FC. That in itself is big news, and I think it's great news. I don't see, and you're hearing about it, you hear Kwahi Leonard, you hear Pablo Torre involved. You go, my first initial thought when I saw this at 4 a.m. this morning was, oh my God, what's going on here? Then as I read deeper into it, I'm going, wait, what is going on here? Because what I took away from it was there was nothing here outside of the fact that Kwahi Leonard has some type of, and his family has some type of relationship with Brett Johnson, and Brett Johnson, who in 2023 was making a heavy push to find as many investors as possible to be able to make this thing work, was able to tap into his network outside of Rhode Island, outside of the soccer world, and into his California connections to make this possible. And Kwahi Leonard, I don't even remember when he got when he signed with the Clippers, and that's irrelevant, sort of, in my opinion. But he was able to find a pathway to get him to put some money into this thing. Then it becomes an issue because Pablo Torre has a stick up his butt for Kwahi Leonard. 2019. Thank you, Name. So for the last year, Pablo Torre has been working on this story with how maybe possibly Steve Ballmer and the Clippers are circumventing the NBA salary cap and trying to find different ways to pay off Kwahi Leonard. seemed like, okay, how are we tied into this? And then you find out, okay, maybe it's just Kwahi Leonard's a secret investor. He was convinced to join this thing with Rhode Island FC, and that's about it. If you know anything about Kwahi Leonard, in my opinion, I heard Eli Sherman on with Tara Granahan on WPRO today talking about how there's a lot of celebrity owners in USL Championship who, have no problem putting their name out there. If you follow sports, what's the one thing you know about Kwahi Leonard? He's a private, quiet, reserved guy that doesn't let anybody into his personal life, and that's his choice. And his choice and his probably demand to Brett Johnson was, listen, I'll give you money to help you, push forward this thing. I like the idea of what you're doing with the stadium. I like the idea of what you're doing with affordable housing to revitalize a ethnic community in a state in this country. Keep me out of it, but here's the money for it. That's really at the end of the day of what we've learned today before we got to, the new reporting from WPRI tonight. That's the conclusion. And really that's the full story, in my opinion.
But is that a story? Because I've had conversations.
All right. So it's a story from the standpoint, not to cut you off, but it's a story from the standpoint of, and I was talking to somebody that I work with about this earlier, and they said that it's a story because of the public money that's involved. No matter if it's a private company or not, the public should be aware of who their money is being used by.
But that's the thing. The money that was used for the infrastructure has already been spent. Whether or not that's additionally been sidelined or attributed to these additional investors, or if the capital that they raised from that group is being spent towards operational costs, there's no point in this where there was something that's been held back in reserve to be committed to Kwahi Leonard, that should something go south, Kwahi Leonard has an exit strategy. He has a golden parachute to leave Rhode Island FC as an investment before anybody else. And even if that does matter, it doesn't at the end of the day, because no club that works as a for-profit organization is, one, required to list their investments or their investors or their board, and two, it's none of our business. Because it's not. If you were investing,
I agree with all of that fully. I guess what I'm trying to say is that from the news standpoint is that, and this is not applicable to Brett Johnson, Rhode Island FC, Fortuitous Partners, Tidewater Landing Group. It's the fact that if you're dealing with people who are giving you money, the public should know, okay, John Gotti is not an investor. Al Capone is not an investor. Jeffrey,
I agree. If this was an ethically compromised investor, we should know about it.
Correct.
What's wrong with Kwahi Leonard? That he only got 27 points on average per game last season, and that's just not good. What are we doing here? You're
going to get people, and I've seen it already from the news angle. Well, Kwahi Leonard's got $300 million. Why did you need public money to go build a stadium? And that's a straw man's argument, in my opinion.
I love this comment from Bob Donald in the chat. What a scandal. A man who values privacy over attention and self-promotion contributes to the construction of a magnificent new stadium in Pawtucket. That's the real story. And we will talk about the spin on this in a bit. But Jason, I want to ask you, what is it our business that a player, a celebrity, has to invest in? Sure, we've heard that celebrities in the past have announced their ownership of things. It happens all the time. Why is it such a controversy suddenly when one celebrity chooses not to? I wouldn't be surprised if there's 3 more celebrities on Brett Johnson's roster who have invested in this club. We joke all the time about Ed Sheeran and his Ipswich Town connection because of that ownership group. I wouldn't be surprised if Ed Sheeran said, hey, here's $60,000. Have a good laugh, Americans. I hope you do well in the soccer thing you got going on over there. Why is this a big deal?
I think it's more of a news story from the NBA perspective, because Kwahi Leonard has the investigation into him, right? They're coming out from that angle, and then they're dragging RIFC along with them.
Okay, but Rhode Island FC hasn't been speaking wise. They haven't been projected as the victim. They've been projected here as an accomplice. So then why is that happening?
That's the thing, is that they're drawing conclusions. They're saying, well, this guy is under investigation, so any and all investments that he did are involved. And so part of it has to do with the timing, right? So according to reporting, LLCs with names tied to Rhode Island FC were formed around the time of Leonard's contract negotiations.
Coincidence.
So they're using that to say that, whether or not this is, they're making ties here because it could be a coincidence or there could be some connection. But
what happened to doing investigations completely and getting everything you needed before you reported on a story? This feels so incomplete. So
that's the problem is, where is the smoking gun? Right. Is somehow
Eli Sherman's, I just can't say it on my radio show.
Is like you joked about earlier, is Steve Ballmer an invested partner, and he somehow gave a part of the ownership of this club to that's what they're trying to say,
fast.
Right?
That was alluded to and heavily implied. Like that was the second shoe to drop today, was that we were going to learn that Steve Ballmer was the angel investor and the guardian that got the funding across the finish line. Tom, I want to jump back to you because you had a really good and insightful why not about that. It didn't come to pan out to be true, but also that would have been a lot of fun to know the 10th richest man in the world was saying, hey, I want to invest in the state of Rhode Island.
Not only is it the 10th richest man wanting to invest in the state of Rhode Island, Brett Johnson has connections so far up, he can go to Steve Ballmer and say, hey, I have something that's really good, that's just not a stadium, but something that's revitalizing the community and helping people in a time where housing is hard to come by in an affordability standpoint. And your investment could give people a chance for a decent living. Obviously, that didn't come to pass. Does Brett Johnson know Steve Ballmer? We don't know because the reporting tonight, we'll get to that in a little bit. But even so, the fact that there's no connection to Steve Ballmer and Brett Johnson in this story should tell you right away, this has nothing to do with what's going on with Kwahi Leonard and Steve Ballmer and the Clippers and the NBA investigation right now. The fact that that connection, in my opinion, has not been made in the last 24 hours here says to me, this is nothing to do with what's going on separately in the NBA. This is just Brett has California connections in the sports world that are connected to Kwahi Leonard. And by the way, probably don't have anything to do with the Clippers, Steve Ballmer. And it goes back to who Brett knows up in Canada, which we'll get to in a minute.
I think this is also funny, from not to disparage something that I love and spend a lot of time invested in, but the idea that salary cap was circumvented by giving a player who was asking for ownership groups of $1 billion like machines, like NBA teams. Well, we've
got this Division 2.
We've got a Division 2 soccer team.
So I agree with that, and that's why the money and the numbers don't add up. And I feel like if Pablo Torre had asked Tom Quinlan about something other than Eli Sherman's take on this, you'd find out some things, because I would have been very forthcoming. And just to go back to the Ballmer Johnson connection, and I don't know this, I'm making a very educated guess here, but Brett Johnson was at one point the CEO of Targus, which supplies computer third-party parts, equipment, accessories. Steve Ballmer at one point was the head of Microsoft. So at some point, from a tech space, they probably shook hands at a convention, and that could have been the start of a blossoming crime fraudulent family where they were going to do all these terrible things 20 to 30 years later. But even if that wasn't, it's just so crazy, to Jason's point, to think that this is how we move money around in today's world, is we invest in Division II soccer teams as a way to skirt or circumnavigate NBA cap salaries.
But the important thing here is that Ballmer is not connected to this thing. That's why that's got to be highlighted more here. What we found out tonight says to me, this goes back to whoever Brett knows in Canada, not who Brett knows in Los Angeles, not who Brett knows in California, but it goes back to the investment groups or person in Canada who possibly made this connection with Brett and Kwahi Leonard and his uncle and everything. Steve Ballmer is completely irrelevant in this conversation when we're talking about how Kwahi Leonard, in my opinion, how Kwahi Leonard became an investor with Rhode Island FC. There is nothing that I've seen, and I haven't listened to the whole Pablo Torre episode. I've watched both WPRI pieces in full.
I listened to all of it. There's nothing there.
There's nothing there with that. So to me, what that says is, okay, Take Baumler out of it, take the NBA out of it, take the tree planting group out of it, take the investigation that Pablo Torre was initially doing into Kawhi Leonard out of it. This is completely separate of all of that. And that needs to be said first and foremost, because that's the key here that I think was left out in Pablo's reporting and in WPRI's reporting. And I think that's important because this should absolve any nefarious dealings that people may think have gone on here with Rhode Island FC and Kwahi Leonard.
But when you think about the secret Canadian relationship, and surprise everyone, it's not Ryan Reynolds trying to own more soccer outside of his native country. You know, it's this double part got you again of WPRI reporting secondarily to like put the nail in the coffin that Canadian hedge fund manager Whitney George helps guarantee the funding with a substantial stake inside RIFC to get the stadium across the finish line. I go and read this and I'm expecting this scandal. I'm expecting this controversy. A hedge fund guy with a $40 billion portfolio invested to make sure that Rhode Island had a professional soccer team. Where's the got you? Where again, to Jason's question earlier, where's the smoking gun in that, Tom? Because
sounds like he's diversifying his portfolio to me.
Exactly. And granted, Rhode Island FC's got to pay off this stadium. You know, there's a lot there when it comes back to paying off the bonds and everything. And by all accounts, by the way, this thing's going to get paid off because people are attending the games. Rhode Island FC is making money on the merchandise. I don't have the official numbers in front of me, but if they were in the red, you would see more signs of that, and you would have heard more signs of that tonight. All you heard is that what Rhode Island FC has left to pay off on the stadium to pay back the bonds and the loans that they were given to be able to get this thing done. Yeah. Are there some things that, you know, financially that we don't know about that you can be critical of? Sure. Do I know about them? No. But what I can say is if it was a bigger issue, it would be more in the front pages, considering also that we're in an election season and Helena Folks, who's running against Governor Dan McKee in the Democratic gubernatorial primary, is looking for every little edge that she can get. If she had something on how this Rhode Island FC thing is failing, she would go with it. But guess what? There's nothing there. And to this story, this is more of a Governor Dan McKee story and what he was doing out in Los Angeles and how he got to the game and everything than it is about Kawhi Leonard's investment. As to Whitney George tonight, great. Brett Johnson knows a lot of people who have a lot of money. That in itself is a unbelievable thing that should make you sleep good at night if you're a Rhode Island FC fan. Brett Johnson knows people with deep pockets that he's able to convince and show that this is a worthwhile investment and people will believe in it. So not only do you have name value of people that are signing up for this thing, but people who have deep pockets as well, who trust Brett to do the right thing with their money, with their investment. That's it from a Rhode Island FC standpoint. That's it. There's nothing else to this story, in my opinion. Again, there's still an outstanding balance to pay back the state and the city of Pawtucket on the stadium. Sure. But outside of that, what else are we talking about here with Kawhi Leonard and Whitney George past this point? Guess what? Rhode Island FC is in the rearview mirror with this story now. Now it's all a focus on what Governor Dan McKee was doing out in Los Angeles, how he got those tickets to the game, and what else happened out in California. Other than that, Brett Johnson's taken out of this thing. Kawhi Leonard technically could be taken out of this thing. And Rhode Island FC, in my opinion, is not a victim or an accomplice. They're just a layer to what Pablo Torre is trying to tell people about what's happening with Kawhi Leonard.
This feels like when Will Smith slapped Chris Rock and it was like, keep my wife's name out of your mouth. That's kind of how I feel about these reporting levels right now. I just want to be like, you know what? You want to go after the governor? Fine. But keep Rhode Island FC out of your dirty mouths right now. Because it all just, you can say it was press, you can say it was bad press, but like at the end of the day, yeah, great. It's great. People are talking about Rhode Island FC, but where's the connotation? We read in the USL subreddits today, like, is this a negative impact now on the league, especially when they dragged former RFC president, now president of operations and academy product at USL headquarters in Brett Louie. He dragged him through it too. Like, there's a lot to still be inferred. Like, mud has been slung into the face of Rhode Island FC. And Jason, it makes me think like,
well, yeah. So what is the point of this, right? So they mention housing, and at the end, like anyone who's followed the story
and
from Rhode Island, anyone who's followed the story in Rhode Island knows all about it. There was reports about earlier about the progress of that. But like, is this just a hit piece, like something weaponized against the governor?
Yes.
And that RIFC is just getting dragged through the mud along with it?
Yes.
And then somehow it's tied to Kwahi Leonard and maybe his like crazy uncle who invests in everything for him.
I tell you right now, if Governor Dan McKee doesn't produce the the 8 AMK receipt in the next like 4 to 8 hours, there's probably going to be some problems.
Well, here's the thing: Governor Dan McKee's on my radio show tomorrow.
Tell him to bring the receipt or don't come on.
He's going to have to answer for this. But again, I think for us tonight here on this show, and this is my stance, and this is even me taking myself out as a play-by-play announcer who represents Rhode Island FC on the air. There is nothing here with Rhode Island FC outside of the fact you have Kwahi Leonard, who's a secret investor who, in order to get Kwahi Leonard to invest, probably said, again, pure speculation, I'm a quiet guy, I'm a reserved guy, I want nothing that attaches my name to this publicly. As long as you can abide by that, here you go. And to me, the story about Rhode Island FC ends tonight.
It'd be better.
And quite frankly, if I was WPRI, I would have put Whitney George on last night as the private investor for Mr. Big, and then I would have dropped the bombshell on Kwahi Leonard tonight.
Can we talk about how I really wanted Mr. Big in this investment story to be the actual Mr. Big from Sex and the City? I didn't ever watch the show, but I mean my parents were everyone knows who Mr. Big is. I really wanted to. I don't know the actor's name, unfortunately, but like
I'll be honest, I'm saying I didn't know who Mr. Big and Mr. Sex and the City was, so I had no idea. I never watched it. You know, that's on me. I'm probably a bad gay for that.
We need to get a Mr. Big Sex and the City tifo in Defiance, and then have George Whitney's name underneath it instead. By the way, catching up in the chat, Pawtucket J writes in, we need to have a Kwahi Leonard bobblehead night. Absolutely. That needs to, Rhode Island FC, please, we know you listen. We know you talk to us all the time. Please lean into it tomorrow. Announce it. Final game of the year. It's the cat's out of the bag. Just do a Kwahi Leonard theme tonight.
Forget the investing in Taylor Swift. I don't get the whole LeBron James, JJ Williams meme thing.
We have Bad Bunny. We have Bad Bunny at the next home game. Don't worry.
Bad Bunny, and now guess what? We have Kwahi Leonard, and for us here, I think it's great. Again, personally, unless there's another shoe to drop here, and I don't just looking at the facts the way they are, it doesn't look like it. It's great that Brett Johnson has so many different connections to be able to find people to make sure this thing got done. So if anybody ever questioned Brett's long-term investment in Rhode Island and how serious Fortuitous Partners was to imagine that whole area of Pawtucket, you got your answer in the last 24 hours between these two stories with how aggressive our owner was to make sure the funding got over the finish line, and not just got over the finish line, but got serious investors involved that would make people say, wow, I need to take this Rhode Island FC club seriously.
So then I'm going to ask a difficult question for you. This is going to be treacherous waters that you're going to have to navigate. Do the best that you can. Yeah. And then Jason and I will pick up the slack and do the interpretation of what you said in a peaceful way. But one of the things that has bugged me through this entire story is the fact that WPRI has not really felt like an ally. I don't care about Pablo Torre. He doesn't know this club. He's not put any of the legwork in. It's
embarrassing. Pablo Torre was embarrassing.
But he is like many of the people we saw, and I have literally arthritis today from the amount of comments and replies. Like someone told me, is Raising Anchor unhinged? Have they gone mental because they're just replying to everything? I felt like we had to make sure
we're also paid, which is
we're totally paid.
I checked my bank account. Yeah, I'm not. I don't know if the payments haven't gone through yet.
My bank account if you're invested in this club, you're defending the wall today. Today you're defending the wall. Today you're getting up there and defending this club because you know that this thing is not a money laundering scheme. It's not we're not still playing in Burns Stadium in year 3. We spent 1 year in Smithfield. Our stadium got done, and we had the investment group and the ownership group that worked their rear ends off to make sure that we are a respectable club that is a model franchise for the USL Championship. So that's why you, me, and a lot of other people felt it necessary to go as hard as we did today to tell the real story about what's happening with this club, because America is not getting it right now. They're kind of confused, and a lot of people are looking at Pablo Torre today and going, what is this thing? That's the real story. And we are the ones that actually are on the front lines with this thing. We talk to the people involved. A lot of us know how to sniff out BS when it comes to sports teams and people involved and whatever. And again, if I felt like there was something that would preclude me from coming on here tonight, I wouldn't do this. I feel obligated to do this because I've had the transparent opportunity, the opportunities to have these people be transparent with me on air to tell me about what's happening. They're saying it publicly, what's happening, and the full story is not being told. As for WPRI's angle, why?
Wait, hold on. Wait. I want to ask you a specific question about WPRI. So let me ask the question first. And before I do that, I also want to reference back to not getting paid. We so don't get paid for this work that we do covering this club that we didn't even get Koke bobbleheads. And Tom, you had the audacity to multiple times today rub that in our face with that image of you holding your Koke bobblehead. So
I love that. It's a meme.
I just want everyone to know, like, we are so not paid that the club has not even found a way to give us. We are Koke bobbleheadless. So if any fans out there that took like 10 that night, you want to talk some numbers, I've got a investment in a Division II soccer club that I can help you navigate. But anyways, the question I have for you, because I want to specifically word this correctly so that you can give the best possible answer.
Oh, you got to word it, yeah.
As I was reading through this, and yes, my bias slipped out. My defense of this club has slipped out all day. Like you said, defend the wall. But it irked me continuously over the last 24-hour news cycle. Everything coming out of Rhode Island local media were worded in such negative connotations across the entire landscape of their posting, their written reports, their video shorts. It was things like secret investor, long hidden investor, quietly embedding themselves, controversial state. Like, when do we get Rhode Island media over this circus of hating on this club to the point that they want this like self-fulfilling prophecy of this investment to fail because they keep punching down on it, they keep making it a joke, they keep insulting it? And when do we see a victory lap for Brett Johnson, for Rhode Island FC, for Centerville Bank Stadium? When does that happen? Because right now, all of them are clowns. And I see Ted Nessie all the time. I've never said hi to him. I see him all the time in my coffee shop. And I think tomorrow's the time I finally go, you're a clown if you're going to continue to insult something where so many people are invested, so many people have faith, and so many people want this to succeed. And in your position of influence, all you ever do is just crap on this. Make this make sense. And from your angle and from your perspective, explain to me when Rhode Island media stops screwing around with Rhode Island FC.
So this is PTSD for Rhode Island media because of Kurt Schilling, 38 Studios, and
that was decades ago.
I understand. And here's where the angle I think they're coming from, and I want to give some grace to WPRI, working in the news industry here. What people like WPRI and some people that I work with at WPRO are looking for is a deeper analysis on the financials, because they want to know that the tax dollars that are being spent on Rhode Island FC are being met. And Rhode Island FC has really no obligation to share a lot of this stuff. And I think because there's a lot of outstanding questions on who else is involved with this thing that, we all love, you're going to have some people that their job is not to care about soccer. Their job is not to care about Connor Smith and the players that he's bringing in and how many people are coming into Centerville Bank Stadium. All they care about is who's invested in this thing and how are the tax dollars going to be reimbursed to the state of Rhode Island.
But does this feel like watchdog reporting still? Because at the beginning I was like, yeah, hold the people accountable. The stadium's now got taxpayer dollars. It doesn't feel like that anymore. It feels like every time there is some sort of success, like Rhode Island FC had a sellout, but they owe $100 million in a high yield payment that Pawtucket's going to be screwed for 30 years. Like, we can't ever get a win. When does that go away?
I think it goes away when all the money gets paid back and people start seeing. Actually, I take that back. I think when people start seeing the construction on the pedestrian bridge and the affordable housing, which is something that Brett Johnson talked to me about, that you're going to see people fall back. And here's why: because in my opinion, we've already shut them up once with the fact that the stadium got built and the team is still here. Okay. That's already 2 wins in our pocket.
But they didn't shut up. They just took a pause. And now when they have to report on it, they remind us of the thing they reported on 4 years ago.
Right. And I think once we get to the point where Fortuitous Partners meets its obligation on phase 2 and phase 3 of the project, which again, if you go back and watch my interview on the WJR YouTube page with Brett Johnson 2 weeks ago about phase 2 and phase 3 of this project, they're like, well, you got the stadium. That's all they really care about. And, quite frankly, that's not it. This is not where it ends for Fortuitous Partners. It's kind of like, all right, well, they got this going on. So, they got their soccer stadium, they got all their money from the state, that this is all they must care about now. And, from that standpoint, I think they're looking for, they're holding this team accountable. Okay, you're not just going to build the stadium now and bail out on the affordable housing that you promised, right? And I think that's kind of like the thing that they've got their nose to the grindstone on. And because, again, there's so much unanswered questions. And again, for me, I don't care about it because guess what? I got my team, I got my stadium. I really don't care who the other investors are. If you want to be part of this thing, great. Nice to meet you. Hope you enjoy Rhode Island. Have a Quahog. Other than that, that's what they're looking for. They want to know who the investors are, and they want to know that the commitments that were made to revitalizing that part of Pawtucket are met. And again, this is where I think Pablo fell short of doing his actual award-winning reporting. Not looking into my interview with Brett Johnson was a big mistake on their end because he gave it to you. He told you that coming in 2027, we're starting phase 2 of this project and we're going to have a pedestrian bridge and we're going to meet our obligation of building affordable housing. And then in phase 3, we're going to build more affordable housing.
Tom, I saw fans today of both the shows and the team defending people that were making those accusations with the links from credible sources about the pending development and the approvals from the local committees to get these housing projects underway. Like it took 5 seconds, and even Eli Sherman, knowing where this was going to go, the direction, I'm sure he got a proofreading session of this, of at least what they plan to talk about. Like, what are we doing here? Again, this is why it feels like the RI media is out to sabotage this club, this project in its entirety, because here we are saying, oh yeah, all that stuff's going to come, but we're never going to give anyone the credit, and we're going to continue to lambast this because we didn't like it to begin with, but we'll begrudgingly deal with it.
Well, listen, we have a very cynical media base here. Plain and simple. We have a very cynical media base that, because of so many other failures outside of Rhode Island FC that have occurred in the past. Again, I go back to 38 Studios, the failures in, some people would talk, if some people watching understand what the Fang Tower was that was supposed to be built in Providence from this Miami investor back in 2018. A lot of different things that passed through the Rhode Island State House. I mean, all of the corruption that happened with Buddy Cianci, the former mayor of Providence, all the corruption that happened with the former Speaker of the House, Gordon Fox. A lot of this is what I said before, PTSD for people in this area that, oh, here comes another flash in the pan that's just going to take our money and put us more in debt. And quite frankly, again, this has been the opposite of what the past has been here in Rhode Island.
I asked AI tools if Eli Sherman has ever said a positive thing about Rhode Island FC, it said that he has never. It did defend that as a reporter and an investigator, it's not his job to.
Yeah,
but I did use AI.
Which I would agree. Listen, their job is to go out there and hunt and do stories. Fine. But there's also another side of the story that needs to be told where, Fortuitous Partners and Brett should and Dan Krober and Peter Baptista, the leads on this project, Dan and Pete, because as Brett said to me,
and George.
But in terms of just like phase 2 and phase 3 of the project,
now we have to add George to every single conversation.
I've got a list of my favorite Whitneys I want to go through tonight, as well as my favorite Canadians of all time, and George Whitney has now surpassed Bret the Hitman Hart. It's not these reporters' jobs to play cheerleader for Rhode Island FC. It's my job.
I don't need them to, but they don't have to kick them.
They also have to tell the other side of the story of what they are doing, and I don't think their reporting and their narratives that they're trying to build allow for wiggle room for Rhode Island FC to be able to tell what else is happening. They have an agenda. We have this, and this, and we're only focusing on this. We don't care about what you have to say necessarily when it comes to, other things happening. We're focused on X. What I found interesting in what the difference is between the WPRI piece and the Pablo Torre piece is that, Pablo Torre focused on affordable housing. It was interesting to me that WPRI didn't even touch that part of it. Maybe because they know Brett's meeting his obligation to build this stuff and build the pedestrian bridge. So all they care about is focusing on the secret investors. And again, that's really all that you've gotten out of the last 24 hours from Channel 12. This is not me trying to slam Tim White and Eli Sherman.
No, I'll do that. That's fine.
But it's the reality of the situation. They're not going into the other sectors of where Rhode Island FC is meeting what they
Tom, their only questions that were used in their reporting and in the Pablo Torre hit piece was to Brett Johnson catching him in a completely unrelated thing after they didn't respond. Hey, is Kwahi Leonard an investor? And Brett Johnson didn't even delay in answering. And then asking Governor Dan McKee where he was on October 23rd, 2025 at 9 p.m. Eastern time. I granted, I know there's a lot more to it. I'm a journalist. I study journalism. I know how that all works. You do a lot of legwork to get very small things. And then when you want to make it to print or to radio, you get 30 seconds, you get 2 sentences. I get that. But they could have done other work. Once they said this, they could have gone to the club and hey, we are going to launch with this. Do you want to double down on this? Do you want another seat at the table to talk before we report on this? We both know they didn't do that. We both know they did not do that.
I think they know the other stuff, and they're focusing primarily on who are the private investors that we don't know about and who is the guy that fronted $20 million to Brett. And that's really all they cared about. And again, they're not talking about how this thing is moving forward. It's where we are in the past. And I don't think that's fair to this club from that standpoint, because it never gave a full picture of what's really happening in totality with Fortuitous Partners, which is much more, which is progressing much more than I think a lot of the people that are naysayers would like to admit.
Yeah, I want two things out of this. One, I want Kwahi Leonard to do the ribbon cutting on the first affordable housing building that's completed. Needs to be out here, cut that ribbon, and then we'll just send that as a nice framed metal plated picture to Pablo Torre.
I want Don Grebbian to give Kwahi Leonard a damn key to the city. I want a Kwahi Leonard night. I want Kwahi Leonard jerseys in the stadium.
Everything.
I am now the leader of the Rhode Island Kwahi Leonard fan club, because all I learned in the last 24 hours is Kwahi Leonard believed in the vision that Brett Johnson was selling him, and he was willing to invest into this thing. And you know what? I'm so proud of this club that they have been able to sell Rhode Island in an era where other people and politicians cannot sell Rhode Island. And Brett Johnson did it. And that's what makes him great. And that's what makes this project great.
If only the media knew how to say that story that way and not the way they did. Where
but again,
investors, if you invest in Rhode Island
from a biased angle.
No. Listen, you could have done this one of two ways. Again, I did this for a while. I got paid at one point to do this. You could have written the story as famous NBA superstar, small forward, invests in Rhode Island infrastructure and entertainment in the state of Rhode Island, or you could have been secret, suspicious investor from an NBA league scandal chooses maybe to put money in our state. Next, come on.
But that's the thing where it goes back to Kawhi's personality. This being a secret thing
has nothing to do with it, Tom.
But in a sense, it does.
Replace that with the word, instead of Kwahi Leonard, replace that name with Jason Carey, and try that again.
Yeah, but Jason Carey doesn't average 27 points a night and won an NBA title.
You don't know that. You don't know that.
In basketball.
You don't know his rec league. You don't know what he's putting up in rec league. Okay.
But Kwahi Leonard being a secret investor here matches up to me with the personality and the person we know that's consistent with who Kwahi Leonard is publicly. Kawhi Leonard is very short-winded. He's very private and secretive, about what he does with his life outside of the NBA. And he was convinced to move forward with this thing in a certain type of way. And again, he just didn't want his name on it. And that's consistent with what we know about Kwahi Leonard. None of that's a shock to me now. Now that I know the story and now that I have a better grasp of what's happening here, this is not a bombshell. The only bombshell here is that, oh my God, we have one of the 10 best NBA players, arguably, in the league involved in our USL Championship club. And the thing that came out of this is a great day for Rhode Island FC. Like, this has been a great week, and this has kind of topped it off with everything, because now you should sleep comfortably at night knowing that people are protecting this thing for the long term. Rhode Island FC has now become the most recognized club in USL Championship in just 24 hours. And by all accounts, the most stable club in USL Championship in the last 24 hours, and is setting an example for future teams coming in that, hey, if you want to play with us in this league, you better have people with deep pockets to come in and support this, because we don't want fly-by-night clubs. We want people that are getting serious money investment to be able to stay around 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the road. When you look around Centerville Bank Stadium, what do you see? At the end zones of each side of the stadium, you see a lot of steel structures that are ready to be built up for expansion for this stadium. So, they already know they need the capital to be able to expand this stadium for when we go to Pro Rel in 2027, 2028 or whatever. And it's an example for everybody else coming into this league moving forward. And even for current owners, like, hey, we're getting serious money people involved in this. And not even just serious money people, we're getting serious names affiliated with this thing. So, yeah, are there some outstanding issues that you could be critical of for Rhode Island FC? Sure, but you could say that for every sports club that is existing in America today. The stability, I feel so much better about the stability of this club moving forward in the past 24 hours than I did after Tuesday night. And not that I was worried after Tuesday night, but I feel so much more relief today knowing that that Brett has the ability to reach out to these people to protect the future of Rhode Island FC moving forward, that we don't end up like the Paw Sox.
Yeah.
So now that we know Kwahi Leonard is a secret investor, what's our wish list for other secret investors? Like, who are we hoping that we find out one day is investing?
Bon Jovi. Brett or Bon Jovi tomorrow.
Taylor Swift, because it would just be so poetically perfect that she was like, God. Yeah, I spent 3 hours in Rhode Island one time at my house, and I just dropped $600,000 by accident out of my purse at Centerville Bank Stadium. So I let him keep it.
You know what? If Travis and Taylor want to invest in the Rhode Island FC, welcome. Let's give you a nice white kit. Let's give you a blue kit. Let's set you up in the club sections, whatever you need. It would be great. You know what? It should say to other people now that this reporting's out there, and really there's going to be no blowback on Brett or the club, in my opinion. This is a safe place to invest. I can invest my money here. If Kwahi Leonard can invest his money here and a guy with $40 billion in his investment portfolio can invest in here, then you know what? Maybe me as a mega millionaire, I can invest in here too. And Jay Leno is a great call.
Jay Leno is a good call. Jason, who would you have as a secret investor into Rhode Island?
Ooh, I would love for some like aging European soccer star where we maybe do the kind of like Drogba thing where they also like play for half a season and just score a few goals.
But that would be secret because they just show up and then it would be like,
yeah. But maybe they've already bought into it. It's like their retirement plan.
So here's an interesting thing. CVS at one point, I know there was conversations if they would invest in the club, whether it was stadium ownership rights. I think that was always going to Centerville Bank Stadium. But CVS Pharmacy, notoriously into soccer now, they're in the women's game a lot. I wanted desperately to see if CVS had any relationship into the club from even if they just owned a suite, because then I was going to try to tie that back to Helena Folks from her time running CVS and be like, we have an investor already. It's Helena Folks, and then just stir the pot. Tom, I just wanted to stir the election season pot.
Well, let's stir the election season pot a little bit here. Go back to when McKee was the tie-breaking vote on the
I know this story.
On the Commerce Association. Guess whose brother sits on the board that voted on whether or not we approved the Rhode Island FC stadium? We were always getting this thing.
Question for the audience here, Tom.
Yes.
Would you be saying maybe that Helena Folks' brother was the one that voted against RIFC happening?
Yes. And guess what? If Helena Folks was going to be the next governor of Rhode Island, Helena Folks' brother would have voted for this thing. The only reason why Helena Folks' brother voted against it was because McKee was involved. If her sister was involved in it, I can guarantee you Helena Folks would have moved forward with this, no matter who was going to be the governor, whether it's going to be Helena or McKee back in 2022, this stadium was moving forward. And here's another reason why Helena would have moved forward with this entire Rhode Island FC project. Helena would not have made her best friend, Gina Raimondo, look bad with Brett Johnson and not approved this stadium project. Helena would have approved it as well because of the tight relationship Helena and Gina have together as well. Gina made the outreach to Brett. Gina recruited Brett to come here to Rhode Island after the Paw Sox left. And with Nick Mattiello, the former Speaker of the House in Rhode Island, put together a deal that made it possible that Brett Johnson could invest in this state. Helena would have not embarrassed Gina by denying this stadium.
I'm just checking up in the chat.
And that's going to be the little fly in the ointment here from Miss Folks to say which is why she's not going against this thing, I think, because of how tight she knows Gina is with Brett and how tight Helena is with Gina.
235 episodes before we just become a political podcast.
We knew it was always going to be a Tom show when that happened. But getting caught up in the chat here, I do want to say we don't need our own Chicharito because as fans of the LA Galaxy, I watched Chicharito take our club into nothingness. So we need something better than a 40-year-old Chicharito.
Like 6 years ago.
No, aging Eurostars might not be it, but maybe they will. I don't know. Listen, we probably should talk about the rest of the stuff we need to talk about. So, Tom, is there any lingering thoughts? Is there anything you're remembering through the battles that you had all day on Twitter? Is there, because I even just remembered one just now. Someone posted that Brett Johnson went in and stole Paw Sox money, forced them to Worcester, and then became a soccer nation here in Pawtucket instead, not realizing the timelines that the Paw Sox had already moved before Brett Johnson ever got the USL franchise license. Because, again, everyone's an expert on our club and our town right now. Is there any lingering comments, thoughts that you want to take this to before we wrap it up?
I think we need to, two things. A, put a rubber stamp on the fact that this Kwahi Leonard, Adam Silver, Steve Ballmer, Clippers connection to Rhode Island FC is completely out the window tonight because of the Canadian connection.
Wait. If Steve Ballmer somehow gets on this show, though, you still have to shave your head.
Yes, I will shave my head. If Steve Ballmer somehow becomes involved with Rhode Island FC, I will come on the show. I will go to either Matt or Jason's house, and I will let them shave my head. That's
I will find a Steve Ballmer. It won't be that Steve Ballmer, but I'm going to find a Steve Ballmer. That head will be shaved. So to go back to my original point, the idea that
Rhode Island FC is connected to the investigation into Kwahi Leonard, Steve Ballmer, and the Clippers completely goes out the window, because tonight, when we found out that Steve Ballmer's name in the last 24 hours has not been mentioned once when we talk about this club, completely absolves Rhode Island FC being part of any type of money laundering scheme with the Clippers and Steve Ballmer. That's point one. Point number two. The idea that affordable housing is not being built is a complete fabrication, because Brett Johnson is on camera saying that phase 2 of the project with the pedestrian bridge and the affordable housing units is going to break ground at some point in 2027. And at some point, I'm going to have Dan Krober on with me on Channel 10 to kind of talk about phase 2 and phase 3 of that project. I don't know when, but at some point I will have them, because Brett told me on camera, go ask them about it, but we are breaking ground in 2027. So those 2 points need to be stressed when people, if you're challenged, if you're out there listening right now or watching right now or listening at a later date, and somebody says to you, oh, wow, I can't believe they made all this promise for affordable housing and they didn't follow through. Show them my interview with Brett Johnson when he said, we're moving forward with phase 2 of this project and we're going to have affordable housing. I'm committed to affordable housing moving forward. And this was never just about the stadium.
I agree on all points. The only thing I would add to it is that we just need to stay constantly vigilant and defend this team, defend
the wall,
city, defend this wall when situations like this come about. I was insanely impressed today with all of the people who rose to the occasion, and I was a little disappointed in the local media, but that's my opinion on this.
But you know what? Our people didn't back down today. Our people didn't back down today because our people know the people involved with this club and the commitment to making this thing the pride of Rhode Island.
It's a shame that this was all done from the guise of reporting and journalism, because Rhode Island FC can't hit anyone with like a slander or a libel, because they didn't actually make any accusations. They just said things and did the Tucker Carlson infer. Like, what does that make you think? How do you feel about that? Did you know that?
By the way, the people that they questioned on the street saying Kwahi Leonard's an owner of Rhode Island FC, what do you think about that? And people are like, what? So now you've only brought more interest to Rhode Island FC. Thank you, Tim White. Thank you, Eli Sherman. You're bringing more awareness to how cool and how great this thing really is.
Do not thank those people on my show, sir. Do not do that. But also, that's fair. I will say this in final pieces to it. I really think, Brett, I know you're listening. Dan, I know you're listening. Tom, Nate, I know you're all listening. Get on this as fast as possible. The cat's out of the bag. Give us everything, Kwahi Leonard, you possibly can do by the end of the season, and just ride this gravy train. You might as well. You might as well lean into the curve and just go for it, right? Lean into the stick and just go.
Into the skid, yeah.
Steer into the skid. See,
I guess the only thing here is that if it's true, like hashtag not an NBA podcast, I don't follow it that much. I know who Kwahi Leonard is.
We would say hashtag not an NBA podcast on the show.
If it's true that he is a quiet kind of reserved person, I mean, maybe like at this point he's like, well, it is what it is. It's out there, but he might not want that. Right. He might not want the likeness. He might not want the attention. I mean, they should still like, hey, now that's out.
Hey, buddy, come on. All right. Well, that is that part of the segment. Listen, Tom, at any point that you want to bow out, you said you were in for the long haul tonight. Yeah. We'll see how long you can actually go, buddy, Mr.
No, I don't want to ruin the flow of your show. I'll let you guys do the rest of your show the way you normally do it. I feel bad that I got all I've been worked up here tonight. So, I'll, bow out and just say my only thoughts on the current state of the club is that this has been my favorite week covering this team, considering that now we can say one of our own has been loaned to an MLS side. We got redemption and we finally beat those SOBs down there in Pittsburgh, and we're going to get redemption this weekend against Birmingham. And we have a lot of stability moving forward. And I'm so proud of you guys, and I'm so happy to know you two, because we really show, that there's more to the story, and people came together when people tried to take us out. So thank you for letting me, opine on a lot of this stuff tonight. And I'm just so excited for the future. What these last 24 hours should show you, take the McKee out of it, take Grebbing out of it. You should be so excited and so, thrilled that you have an owner in Brett Johnson that has such a, deep commitment to this club and to this state, that we have something special here for generations to come. So thank you.
Agreed. Tom Quinlan, where can people find you before they go? I'm sure everyone listening knows you already, but where can people find you?
So we do the broadcasts on 790 The Score. I'm the play-by-play announcer for Rhode Island FC. We usually start right at kickoff for away games. Usually start about 5 minutes before, during home games. So follow me on Twitter at TommyQuinlan_IV for all of that. And, I love this club. I love you guys. And let's keep rolling here, boys. That's really all I've taken away from the last 24 hours. Train keeps moving. Defend the wall.
Defend the wall. That's Tom Quinlan, everyone. We'll see you soon, Tom.
I love you.
Thanks, Tom.
All right. Now back to the regular show. Leave it to Tom to drop some cussing into our show. It's happened, 3 times in 235 episodes? So we'll probably edit that out.
Yeah, I can't,
Maybe we won't, because it's just going to be such a long episode. I won't have time to pull it back. So we're going to go back through now the regular show that we had planned before any of this dropped earlier today. So for those of you that are listening, I'm sorry if you stayed this long and didn't want to hear it. And if you didn't, I don't care. I'm not cutting this up into 2 parts. You're getting a 2-hour show. So let's reset and let's start here, Jason, with the news we thought we were opening with. And that was that the game is gone. Reports here from The Athletic, the new company that we were going to be calling FIFA Forward Enterprises, or FFE, was going to have FIFA prepared to sell up to 21%, or what we would call $4.2 billion into the governing body of the World Cup, allowing a majority of retained control. What are we doing here, Jason? Is FIFA for sale? I didn't think that's how governing bodies worked.
Oh man, I mean the corruption train just went full steam ahead as soon as the World Cup's over, didn't it? I mean, it's let's just take our beloved tournament to private equity and let's just get a watered down tournament, like late stage capitalism strike again. Like, let's all celebrate in the streets. Am I right?
I these are the things that cause riots and revolutions. You'd think that the leaders of this world, especially this free world, would know better. Zlatan had a scathing conversation about it today. I was really enjoying it. Luckily, cooler heads prevailed. UEFA and CONCACAF already out in support, or lack thereof, I should say, of this initiative, of this establishment, of giving every country a $20 or $40 million gift to lose their rights forever in FIFA management of the World Cup and its qualifying and its other entities. It's good to see that these groups are coming out against this. But how do we get Infantino out now at this point? And how do we make sure this never happens again?
I think Infantino spent a little bit too much time in America. I think he learned from a certain other person, like a playbook where you just tell them exactly what you're going to do and just be completely openly corrupt and there's no repercussions for it. Like, what are they going to do?
Okay, it's over. At least we think it will be, because if UEFA is standing strong, usually the rest of the dominoes in terms of the confederations.
Yeah. Without UEFA, there's no World Cup. I mean, granted, CONMEBOL, but like they're just gonna wait and like side with.
They're like Switzerland, even though Switzerland and UEFA and they already did a vote. I guess that's the first time Switzerland has ever had to make a vote in something interesting. Jason, I want to ask this question now, because this will, I think, forever tarnish the legacy of Infantino. Is he worse than Blatter yet, or does he have a lot more corruption before he hits Blatter territory?
I think they're pretty close right there. Like, if we had a Mount Rushmore of corrupt FIFA, they're neck and neck right next to each other.
Would it just be the two of them twice for now until we get 2 more corrupt FIFA leaders at some point? Or are
there's some more? What was that guy from? Was it Jack something?
Chuck
Jack
or something like that.
There was some guy. I mean,
yeah.
If there was some sort of different organization maybe in our government, I would assume the FBI would be all over this. It remains to be seen what's happening. To quote the infamous Taylor Twellman, what are we doing here, guys? Like, what is this?
Spoiler alert, Infantino probably almost became the secret investor for Rhode Island FC. Good thing Brett Johnson has an excellent judge of character when it comes to these types of things. Going further into this, moving on in other news, back to the USL here. A new technology emerging for USL in trial now. Football video support enters the USL here. It was announced earlier today that the USL plans to become the first professional competition in the United States to implement this technology, and they're going to implement it during the final stages of the 2026 Brinks Tires USL Cup, and then the interleague competition, of course. There want to be really clear in saying this is not VAR. That being said, this technology is designed in lieu of all of the necessary cameras of how VAR works to provide a different version of analysis and secondary reffing and understanding of what's going on the pitch when it comes to those key match decisions. And the really critical thing here is that what it can cover, because I think people are saying, oh, game's gone again, because a lot of people don't like VAR, right? Some people like it, some people are okay with it, but a lot of people still hate it. People are fearing that we're moving in the wrong direction with this technology. Right now, this new FVS system will only be used to provide clear and obvious errors around serious missed incidents involving goals or no goals, penalties or no penalties, direct reds, and mistaken identity, where a card would send off the other player. So not even if it's just the yellow card given to the wrong player, it's only if that yellow card would result in a rejection. So very much similar to VAR, but instead the way they're going to use this technology is just refs are going to be watching the game as a secondary, tertiary kind of backup and making sure that the head ref, the assistant refs didn't miss something along the way. There's no additional, we're not using ball line technology, we're not using goal technology, we're not using anything like that. It's just a set of eyes watching a screen intently and trying to help assist in the head ref making the best possible decisions on the pitch. Any thoughts, any concerns about this? And is the Brinks Tire Cup the right place to test run this?
I think that's a good place to test run it. You always want to try it in a somewhat of a little bit, I don't want to say more low stakes in a sense that it doesn't matter, but it is always good opportunity to test them in, if you will, other competitions. I'm open to the idea. I kind of want to see how it's actually implemented. So definitely be paying attention to this competition as it wraps up to see if we get any instances of it being used, what that looks like, and if there's like, slowing down of the game that everyone kind of hates about VAR, or like, will the video system all of a sudden still get the wrong call? And they're like, cool, it's nothing has changed.
I mean, well, it'll be a wait and see. Some people argue that these technologies are there to support. Some say that it ruins the spirit of the competition, and others say it makes refs lazy because they have this fallback, even though when VAR does make a challenge, they still have their egos bruised and don't go with the decision. I can't wait to see it happen. Again, it's in trial. I'm sure if this goes well for the rest of the season, it will be implemented in its continuation into the regular season at both championship and USL 1 levels. And I'm sure they probably need this technology online for what they want to do next for their premier aspirations. So when you have an ambition like that, you've got to get those things in order, and it's best to trial it. I think it's a good
kind of compromise, right? In a sense of like, we're going to become D1. Can we maybe VAR also, like, let's be honest, maybe that is an expense a little bit too far for the immediacy. What if we try out something new? If it works out well, we can implement that too. And that kind of adds to the credibility of the league, if you will, too.
One of those things Kat is asking in there, is there additional refs to this, or can they go to the screen and do a review of this? It is actually supposed to be a secondary ref who's monitoring on screens. There are camera setups for a ref to go if they have confusion or conflicting perspective between the line refs and the head ref, but the technology is designed basically to provide clear video watching capabilities for a secondary person to make that decision. Now, the interesting part to it, as what we've been understood so far, is also the way a team can request a review. And that's one of those things in the trial phase where if a referee overturns it, they can say, hey, this isn't the right decision. Now, I don't know, to Kat's point, if the refs that are being assigned for the Brinks Tire Cup matches are in addition to make sure the technology works, and it's more of like an IT vendor there on site that also knows game, or if this will strictly be something on the pitch where they come in, they stop the game, they go over it and assess it. I've heard a combination of the two things, so we'll have to get closer to that. But either way, even if there's any additional technology and whatever this challenge system looks like, it will be interesting. And yes, Derek, so that's what I'm trying to say. Sorry, I didn't mean the extra, like someone sitting there. I meant as the fourth official. There will be another set of eyes who can review the technology. So I apologize for that, guys. That's where this is going. But let's move on and let's talk about some good news here in the league. And that is, of course, the resigning, not re-signing, but the resigning, because we saw the typo. It looks like Koke Vegas, Amos Shapiro-Thompson, and Hugo Bacharach have all resigned from Rhode Island FC.
No, despite what the typos may say, Rhode Island FC re-signs goalkeeper Koke Vegas, midfielder Amos Shapiro-Thompson, and defender, or I guess midfielder, Hugo Bacharach. Rhode Island FC announced today that it has re-signed Koke Vegas, Amos Shapiro-Thompson, and Hugo Bacharach ahead of the 2027 USL Championship season. Vegas and Shapiro-Thompson, a pair of the club's original signings, will return for a fourth season in the Amber and Blue, while Bacharach will play his third season in the Ocean State. The trio of players are the first to re-sign with the club for 2027 and beyond. Koke, Amos, and Hugo have been key players for us, and bringing them back is crucial to maintaining our success, said Rhode Island FC head coach and general manager Connor Smith. We are excited to bring a strong core of players into the 2027 season as we continue to build on the club's culture.
So unlike previous seasons where they've hinted at multi-year deals, these all seem like they are single-year extensions that bring them into the 2028 landscape. Jason, I want to talk about Koke Vegas separately in a second, but do we think that that's intentional to prepare for USL Premier in the event that suddenly if we go to Division I and there's more table stakes that are larger than ever, that we may need to change the composition of this roster? Is that intentional by design that they didn't say? Because in the past they have said multi-year.
I think it's possible. You don't want to kind of like, also lose players on free. We also just recently saw that one of our players was loaned out. And so I think you also take a look at your players and think about who are your quote unquote most valuable players. If we're being honest here, Koke is probably going to stay here as he's on the wrong side of 30, right? I don't expect a keeper like that to be moving to MLS, but you have hugely successful, players in Amos and Hugo for us that could be viewed as assets to, maybe at some point, if not bolster our squad, also be sold on for some potential profit in the future.
So then the real question back to you said a second ago, Koke Vegas, he's starting to get long in the tooth, getting older. Now, granted, a keeper can hold on a lot longer. The vitality is there. At what point does this become the conversation 1 year too long versus 1 year too early? Because you never want to, as a club, as a head coach, as an owner, you never want to hold on to a player longer than you should because of the money wasted, the injuries, the lack of performance, the dip in performance, versus sell them, even if it's a year earlier, you get that value out of them, you move on and you start building for the next big thing. Again, I don't know where Koke fits in that timeline, but when do we start asking ourselves, is it 1 year too early or is it 1 year too late?
No, good question. But I don't think he's had any dip in form to make us question that. And we've seen, very good goalkeepers can play till they're pretty much 40. So at this point, I don't even think there's a reason for us to have any concerns for one of two things until he's either hitting 35 or we see a massive dip in form.
I remember my goalkeeping just went right out the window at 35. So I agree. Moving on to other news within the RIFC universe, going into a little bit of alumni updates. Mark Ibarra, now an assistant coach. It was released earlier this week that the University of Las Vegas men's soccer head coach BJ Craig announced the addition of Mark Ibarra from the Las Vegas Lights as an assistant coach to his staff. Craig went on to say, "We're very excited and grateful to have Mark Ibarra join us. Mark is a top player in person. He is passionate about the game and coaching, has great skill sets, and will be another great addition to our staff at UNLV." This is confusing because Ibarra is joining this Rebel program mid-season, and the way the news article listed it, it sounded like Ibarra was hanging up his boots. It went on to say, Ibarra played professionally over the course of 4 years, most recently with
an obituary
with his club at the Las Vegas Lights. Right. The weird thing is when I read it, I was like, well, is Mark Ibarra retiring as a player to take this role on? Is he double dipping? I go and look at FOTMOB and he played 90 minutes 5 days ago. So Is this just poorly constructed and we expect him to be both a player for the Lights and then a continued coach?
Does he have a
Las Vegas?
Does he have like a identical twin? Maybe.
Not that I'm aware.
About?
Not that I'm aware of. Maybe he spells it with Mark with a K at the end. I don't know. But either way, good for Mark, and maybe for the Lights. It sounds like they may have a journeyman for as long as Mark wants to continue to play, if he's now potentially working on his coaching degree and his coaching licenses, so to speak, here with the university.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's good for a lot of these players to kind of think about, post-career, how do I post soccer playing career, like where do I go next? And to have it kind of already lined up that he's going to go into coaching, perfect for him.
Yeah, Kat and a couple others, I think Derek in there as well, bringing back up, it is the 4th official for that video football system. Guys, it's been a long day. I'm tired. I'm going to make some mistakes. But unlike Pablo Torre and the WPRI news team, I will accept that I've made a mistake and take accountability for it. So thank you for holding me accountable in the chat. Jason, a little bit news left to go. So much more, actually, I should say. Baby, you're a firework.
Yeah, RIFC announced that their September 19th home match against the Miami FC will have a fireworks show following the match. The only fireworks I'm going to be seeing that night is Fred Durst, though.
The funny thing, it's not funny, but I do believe that they are doing this one because of the rain out that forced some of these other fireworks shows, and also maybe in the effort to close the gap on getting some additional sellouts. They know the power that fireworks has over Rhode Islanders. Is there anything more to that than this? Is this just a simple butts and seats transaction?
No, absolutely. It's anyone who's been in the state knows that it rains on a lot of Saturdays. Apparently not the ones where we play away games, but anytime we're at home, it's going to rain. So
if you're a Legacy fan living in Rhode Island, you're having the best life possible this summer. If you're a Rhode Island FC fan living in Rhode Island, there's room to improve.
Yeah. Quick shout, because we jumped over it. Hugo Bacharach made team of the week here. But
sometimes it just happens.
There's so much news. Did you know we signed another player today?
Yeah, and so got the bean spilled to me late last night that a loan was inbound. Did not think that this was going to happen, Jason, because of the breaking Kwahi Leonard stuff. Thought, hey, maybe they're going to pause this so they can build this up for another day. But head coach Connor Smith's like, not today. I'm not letting any basketball player get in my way.
If anything, more eyes on us. Might as well announce tons of things. So Rhode Island FC announced today it has acquired forward Yutaro Tsukada from Major League Soccer organization Orlando City SC on loan for the remainder of the 2026 season, pending league and federation approval. The 2024 first-round MLS Super Draft pick joins the club after spending the first 2 seasons of his professional career with Orlando, and will be available for selection for Saturday's game against the Birmingham Legion FC.
If there's one thing I've learned, Jason, Kano Smith, he loves Japanese players and he loves the 2024 MLS Super Draft picks, because that is where so many of these players come from. He actually went on to say Yutaro is a creative winger with an eye for goal, and his technical ability and pace will help drive our attack forward. This creativity will add yet another dimension to our squad.
Yeah, and Yutaro's professional career began when Orlando City SC selected him 25th overall in the first round of the 2024 MLS Super Draft. Tsukada signed with the club's MLS Next Pro reserve team, Orlando City B, where he made an immediate impact in a breakout rookie season. The Tokyo, Japan native finished 3rd on the team with 7 goals and 2nd with 7 assists in 22 MLS Next Pro regular season appearances, 20 of which were starts. The impressive string of performance earned him 5 call-ups to Orlando City's first team in 2024, and he eventually signed with MLS club for the 2025 season. Although an ACL tear did sideline him for the entirety of the 2025 season, the winger returned to the club in 2026, where he logged 281 goals in 6 appearances.
281 minutes. He did not log 281 goals. You're tired too. It's fine.
Yeah, it's a long pod. 281 minutes. Imagine
if he got 281 goals in 6 appearances,
we couldn't afford him. Yeah.
The teams he did that to.
Yeah. I gotta, of course, I had to work, so not a lot of time to do some research on him.
Don't apologize.
But I did watch his highlight reels, and he does seem to prefer coming from the left. So I assume that's where we're gonna employ him.
So two things. 1, 14 goals in his MLS Next Pro season across 20 games is not nothing, but that was 2 years ago when you factor in his ACL tear. Second, we also know that Connor Smith, he loves taking wounded warriors into this club. Think about Amos Shapiro-Thompson off of a ACL tear and a lot of time missed. Think of Hugo Bacharach, same thing, had knee problems coming into it. Connor McGlynn had knee problems. We inherited a broken JJ Williams when we first
Connor
got him.
Smith's home for the broken and the damned.
It might be. So my first question is, where do we think this player's actual rehabilitation and ceiling could be in trying to get eyes back on him to reignite his career? Is this the right move? I think from a competition level, it's above Next Pro, it's below MLS, but where do we see this guy's ceiling based on the information we have at hand?
I mean, I feel like this is the in kind of the that zone, like you said, right, where he's somewhere in between. I think at this point we're taking a chance on him that he's good enough for this level and that he might prove us that he can play at a higher level and make that jump back to MLS. I mean, it's just a loan at this point too. And in our experiences with loans, they usually tend to do pretty well and we lose them pretty quickly.
Orlando City recall happening in 6 weeks, guys.
So, I mean, if this just kind of gets us through a bump while some of our players kind of come back to health, maybe like a Corcoran last year, if you will. I mean, I don't hate it.
Okay, but then the other question is, we've heard Kano say repeatedly this season that any acquisitions he has are to make the squad better. Where do we rate this then, especially as a winger, a position that we thought we had enough of? Is this just simply a Gogo Peters replacement because we didn't have an additional forward attacking piece, or is this designed to put pressure on the likes of Leo Afonso?
I mean,
Noah
Leo
Fifon,
Afonso
Dwayne
was
Atkinson
reported is injured. We don't know or
he's unavailable. We don't know
what extent that is, right? If he's playing on the left, that's kind of the position that we've been playing him. I mean, maybe this is to challenge him to rise to the occasion, if you will.
Then do we see this player getting sizable minutes? Because again, the counterpoint is,
as a loan on Saturday.
Of course we will. They only have 16 players available to dress right now. But as a loan, do we think that he will get sizable minutes? Because if he doesn't get his minutes, then he's just going to want to leave the club, or Orlando's going to recall him anyways.
Yeah, no, I bet he will. I speaking of which, I wonder if they saw that Dorsey scored and like thought, oh man, what if
he could have been doing that for us? But hey, listen, we're not going to do ad breaks tonight because this show's not going the way it should have for our sponsors. So we're just not going to put a Sunday show or a Saturday show up for our radio. So this is just a podcast back tonight, guys. So we're going to move right into the next part.
Back to the good old days where we spent
just 2 hours talking,
just waxing poetic about RIFC.
Jason, bring us up to date with the league standings and let's go from there.
Yeah, so RIFC still in 6th place as the midweek matches couldn't affect RIFC's table position. So we've still got that 6-4-5 record. We've seen Indy 11 traveling to San Antonio on Friday here. So they temporarily could jump RIFC if they're able to get a result. But San Antonio is 2nd in the West. So I don't see that being an easy match for them. We'll kind of figure out on Saturday where we're at from there. RIFC traveling to Birmingham this weekend. So let's take a look at how we think they're going to line up this.
Before we do that, I cannot not comment again. You said it earlier in the show, but Pittsburgh losing to FC Tulsa via a Logan Dorsey goal is just the cherry on top of everything else happening this week. Jason, they are now 2 games ahead of us, only 2 points ahead of us. And we could really make a jump this weekend, depending on how things go with a win. And every time I feel like we get ahead of ourselves, it doesn't work out in our favor. But with just that 1 point difference between Pittsburgh and Rhode Island, we could jump into 5th place and be staring down the sights, looking at our first time ever of a home playoff berth. Are we ready to dream just yet, or do we need to pump the brakes a little bit here based on how Birmingham's been, their form? They don't look like an exceptionally great team, but sometimes this spells trap game. Is this a trap game?
Ooh, I hope not. And so speaking of Birmingham, let's talk about their form here real quick. They recently had a game against New Mexico called off due to weather conditions. Interesting enough, they were not going to play that at Protective Stadium. Instead, it was going to be scheduled at a Donovan Valley Field.
Like Todd Donovan?
Yeah, but I'm actually curious. I kind of wish that game would have gone through to see if like them playing somewhere else could have had a different effect on them, because every time I've seen a match in Protective Field, it looks like there's maybe 3 people in the stands.
That's because they're all on the non-camera side.
But it's just like, it's such a massive stadium. It looks empty. There's no way that can do anything for the players on the field.
I also think, by the way, that Birmingham Legion has to reschedule like 3 games at a minimum this year because of weather. So I don't know if I know like one of them really messed up the Brinks Tires schedule. I don't know how many more games. I mean, I'm looking at their games in hand, and they have 16 games, so they've played more matches than us. But I don't know if that's going to haunt them with a more stacked schedule towards the end of the season, like we're facing as well.
Yeah. Birmingham Legion also played last night against Louisville in a midweek match, losing 2-1. And so with that loss, they are now winless in the last 5 in the league, with 3 draws and 2 losses. I went back and watched and looked at the highlights and some of the stats on the match. Louisville had 29 shots against them.
What are they trying to pretend to be their Rhode Island FC?
I don't know. Like their goalkeeper was on a tear. Like Louisville should have beat them like 8-1.
Do you know the only other team, you talked about their record total overall, do you know the only other team that they've actually won against this season?
Well, I do know they beat us. Probably Pittsburgh. Right?
It is Pittsburgh. What is going on here, Birmingham Legion? What water are you drinking down south? Oh my gosh. So speaking of, with those 2 wins, we talk about the one against us back on May 2nd. It's not fun to remind ourselves that we fell 3-1. A very weird goal. I mean, I think the 2 weirdest games of the season, Jason, for us have been that Birmingham home game and then the Sacramento Republic away game. But we went down so fast, losing a goal in the 4th minute. We went on to try to equalize before just the game got routed, and it was probably one of the weirdest showings, like I said, of the season. Birmingham did see some success in Brinks Cup, but a lot of that was leveraged against USL one side. So it's like, how much of that,
or teams not caring about the competition,
or teams that we're not going to prioritize this. So, they didn't move on in that one. Their form is bad. Their record is terrible. Just those 2 wins. I asked you, trap game, is this, Jay Heaps has some kind of formula against Cano Smith. He knows a little bit about the guy from his extensive time with him in New England, and also Cano's time down in Birmingham.
Him coming back to New England and him like gaining his powers back, and he just had to.
Oh, so Jay Heaps is only strong against us if he's in a New England area? I think it's more than that. I think Jay Heaps became very familiar with Cano and his approach down at Cano's time with Birmingham. We saw Cano never get bested by his former mentor and Tommy Sohn, but I think Jay Heaps is a little bit different of an animal there. I don't know if we take the previous history of our time and our success against Birmingham Legion and use that as a stepping stone, or if we take this most recent loss as like a fresh wound and say, never again will this happen to us, especially down in Birmingham.
And so it's crazy that you bring that up. When we look at our history against Birmingham, until this year, we've absolutely wiped the floor with them. So our record here against them is 4-1-1. And it wasn't until earlier when they came on May 2nd that they actually picked up 1 win. Before that, it was just,
we were firmly in control.
Yeah. We Zach Harivo started off the party just scoring goals for fun against them in our first visit. And then from there, it's just been, pretty comfortable for the most part.
Zach Harivo feasted against his former team. JJ Williams feasted against his former team. No, if you saw him getting goals from distance, it has been almost a relatively cruise control type of matchup when we've seen this team. Demus comes into the picture, rattles our cage a little bit. Now here we are in the 2nd season against them. What does that mean for Rhode Island FC? Hard to say, but when we look at what we're bringing down to Birmingham this weekend, I don't know. I don't know how we should feel about this. Getting through the availability report as we still understand it. Leo Afonso still listed as out. We won't know it until closer to the end of the week on whether he traveled. Zach Harivo still on the mend, along with Krifa Yao, Amity Jope. And we're just not going to report on Gogo Peters after tonight because you guys know he's on the season-ending injury list. And also, I will never say Clay Holstead's name ever again when it comes to this report, at least until maybe sometime in 2027. We'll see how that goes. Got a few additional details about that, by the way. We'll probably share it in a future pod when I don't have a million things that we got to share about, but we'll transpose on the Clay deal a little bit more in the near future. Jason, with all these injuries, with all this lack of availability, we do know that 1 player on this weekend will be available in Sukada. What do we think this lineup should look like?
Yeah, because of all the injuries and not knowing whether or not anyone's going to be available, if you will, in that regards, we're thinking here we're probably going to use the same lineup that we beat Pittsburgh with here. So
if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Absolutely. Koke Vegas and net here with a back four of Nick Scardina, Grant Stoneman, Frank Nodarce, and Aldair Sanchez. You're holding midfielders of AST and Hugo Bacharach with Jojea Quizera, Pity Rodriguez, and Noah Fuson as your cams or wingers, if you will, and JJ Williams up top. You know, when it comes to Sukata, we know he'll be available. I don't imagine he'll start, but I think assuming he's healthy, he'll probably play. But where do we think Froyo is available? And I said that on purpose in terms of availability.
Oh man, I can't wait till someone accidentally typos that into like a custom jersey kit, and they just end up with maybe it'll be intentional. I don't know. I have no updates. I can only infer what I know from previous ITC transfers that come out of that particular region of the country, because there's good relationships standing between the UK, Europe in large, and America. I can't imagine that unless there was like a major, like a lawyer failed to dot an I or cross a T, that he would not already be available after the pending announcement, because those are usually after the process has already begun.
Them on purpose. They don't want to announce it and be like, well, we'll see him in 3 months when his visa clears.
And they also say pending federation and league approval, right? So now it has happened in the past. Like players have gotten stalled in the paperwork. This isn't a country where I would be worried about something like that. Go back to the World Cup and like you look at all the countries that had harder permits, whether they were working or tourist visas. It's a little bit different of an animal depending on the area you're coming from. The UK is just not one of them. I expect Foyo to be on the bench in this game. I don't expect him to make a start. And that will bring us up to 18 people that we can field on a game day roster. That being said, though, I also wouldn't be terribly surprised if we're one more week away from seeing him actually dress for a game. It's just until we hear it and until someone can send a picture and see it, that's just where we stand on that one. So, but I personally believe that we will have Foyo in the mix. Is there anything, we joked about how if it's not broke, don't fix it. Is there anything about this lineup? Is there anything that Rhode Island FC should be doing differently on the night against Birmingham? Obviously a different type of team, different type of play style, but Rhode Island looked really good defensively. They got the goal they needed on the road. Should they be doing anything other than perfecting what they've already become really good at?
There's only one thing that concerned me. We gave Grant Stoneman his flowers recently and said, hey, we're sorry. You've proved to us in the last few weeks or month that, you've still got it there after maybe a few shaky performances earlier on in the season. But we know that Ronaldo Demus has been a tear in our backyards, our back line.
And our back
Sebastian and our back, did a lot of damage to us against in that early match. I would just be very wary of our back line, maybe pressing too high, giving them opportunity to play in behind us, because that we like to press high, we like to suffocate, we like to win the ball back, redistribute, and continue the attack. But that also sets us up to be countered. And that could be a worry for our back line there.
So I mentioned just Jay Heaps know the secret code to Cano Smith. Does it go the other way now? Has Rhode Island FC solved Birmingham in the sense of they know the tweaks and the adjustments that they need to make in the second edition of these matchups, and was made the wake-up call?
The thing that I would say about RFC and Kano and the way that he played, like while he will change players for matchups,
he doesn't have those players available.
Yeah, and right now we're so thin that he really doesn't have.
Like, what is Dwayne Atkinson going to do differently that Leo Afonso or Pity Rodriguez or Noah Fuson? Like it's not there.
With the exception of a few games,
unless
where I'd say there's a few exception, a few games where I'd say like a one-off tactic change. RFC kind of play their game. Right. They try and do it away. They try and do it at home. They do the same thing. The one example I think I would use is difference. Remember the Open Cup against Hartford, where we're just like, hey, just have the ball. We know you can't do anything.
We technically did it again in the El Camico.
Sometimes we can't control that either, though. If we come up against an opponent who is maybe just a little bit better at controlling possession than we are, it just forces us to play that transition style. But we know that Kano does like to have more possession if possible. And so he doesn't want to give that away. He believes that it gives them opportunities to kind of build an attack against us. So I don't see us changing anything outside of maybe little tweaks where he says, hey, we know that these guys can hurt us. So you need to just be mindful, right? Always be checking your shoulder for runs. Maybe, they're still going to try and play the same way, but they're probably going to be a little more wary of counterattacks.
They got to watch the transition. I think that's spot on. I mean, and if anything, Jay Heap is going to be like, do more of that, right? Like, if we talk, is Rhode Island going to play the same strategy they played against Birmingham, or excuse me, against Pittsburgh, or are they going to modify a little bit to the stacked approach? But for Birmingham, I think the blueprint's pretty obvious. They're going to keep doing the same thing until that fails them. And right now they have some version of success against Rhode Island this season. So I do think that, right now, I still think that the overall historical alignment of the series gives the psychological edge to Rhode Island, especially with the chip on the shoulder of that loss. But I don't think that they can rest on their laurels against this Jay Heap side getting into it. Now, going further and talking about the defense itself, right now the defense is definitely going to be carrying this team. We saw it last week in Pittsburgh, but we've seen a lot of that. They're one of the better defenses in the championship this season. We've just been so excited by the goals. Like, we need to also give our flowers to those players. Do we see the defense keeping up with this Birmingham side on the weekend, especially with speed like the Moose's against maybe players like Stoneman on that? Because he's not going to attack wide. He's going to attack centrally. We know that. We've seen him do that. I anticipate a lot of route one over the top. Do we think that that's going to be a liability on the weekend?
I mean, defense wins playoff races, right? And we've seen this team historically be strong at defense. We've had some lapses where we've looked a little shaky, but overall, this team has been consistently a high performer when it comes to defense. By the time this game happens, it is going to be August. And we know that this team loves a second half of the season, kind of like, it
doesn't start in August, though. Don't do that. It starts September 1st, maybe the last week of August. But
no. When we go back to 2024, I mean, maybe last year was I'm going to go back a little bit later. Talk. Like, they just came off road win against Pittsburgh. We beat our rival, 2-1-0 victories, strong defense. I mean, it's a formula that translates well into postseason success.
2024 actually kicked off in June, but last year, my friend, it did also not really kick off till August 9th. Okay, fine. It kicks off in August. You're right. Again, I'm wrong again tonight. This is such a tough one. Joe in the house saying Will Meyer will get the Hattie on the night. That is a bold prediction. Put that into Calci. Let me know how that works out for you. Next question here then. Birmingham season overall. We said 2 wins. Obviously underachieving, but 2 wins against respectable teams, because hey, one of them is us, buddy. Does that make them dangerous? Like, should we be anticipating that they're kind of in that do or die moment themselves to beat people in the East to get further up the table and to get back into playoff contention?
I mean, when we look at the history of, at least in the years that we've been covering this league, Birmingham just are inconsistent. It's just it's their middle name. They struggle to string together consistent results throughout each season. So, and I mean, they've not been able to build a lot of momentum. There's been lots of player changes. I mean, last year we thought that they were going to be a real contender, right?
They were like the strongest. They were the Tampa Bay Rowdies of last year.
Yeah, they signed everyone. Like, they went out and literally bought everyone, and we're like, oh, hey, what's up? And then, of course, what happened? Yeah, they didn't build on that. So I think if RIFC don't get in their own head, if they play strong in the back line, I don't think that Birmingham's going to come up with too much to really spoil our day there.
It's so weird. I look at their history of performance, and it's like they get 2 draws, almost a win, and then you see the timelines, and like they almost had a win, and then they lose the game. They are very inconsistent right now. I don't know if I would say they can't be dangerous. I think a team like this
they can
play a little less fearless, because there's no pro rel, so there's no circumstance where they have to worry anymore. I think they can be dangerous for that reason. But then the final question, this is 2 Eastern Conference teams. Is this a true 6-point match, or because one team is firmly cementing themselves rather quickly into the basement and one team has aspirations for a home playoff berth? Is obviously it's movement, but is this even, do we call this a 6-point match of any kind?
Yeah, I mean, they're in the Eastern Conference. We saw that, when you turn it on at the right time, they could mysteriously just all of a sudden win their last 6 games and all of a sudden sneak into 8th place. So anything is possible to a certain extent here. So I think that all of our, Eastern Conference matchups from here on are all 6-pointers at this point. Especially if we have the ambition to go for that 4th place home spot.
I think that too, and plus the fact that the people behind us in the table standings all are sitting just 1 point behind us, so we need to quickly widen the gap between those. But talking about the wins, talking about that momentum, Jason said it at the beginning of the show almost 2 hours ago. The Rhode Island FC hasn't won 3 consecutive matches since 2024. That feels so weird to say out loud.
It does. I went back and looked through all of our matches, and the last time we've won 3 in a row during the postseason run in 2024, where we knocked out Indy, Lou, and then Charleston to win the Eastern Conference Final. And then before that, in the regular league season play, earned a 3-game winning streak towards the end of September, besting Tulsa, San Antonio, and Tampa Bay.
And I mean, if you add the 2 draws that happened with the Charleston and Loudoun matches between those sandwiches of Hatties, this team went on a 9-game unbeaten streak. It's, again, so long ago.
The good old days.
Wild. It's the best streak they've ever had. I don't know if Rhode Island FC is any point soon going to match that success, but it can start on this weekend. I don't want to jinx the club, but this is the sign of this team going from a good team to a great team, is getting 3 in a row and beating opponents that are at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, despite the fact that we've spent almost the entirety of this season's podcast talking about how they fail to show up against teams that are beneath them in the standings. Is this that moment where we flip that switch?
Absolutely. This is the moment where, Connor Smith and RIFC prove the doubters, the haters wrong. They show Kwahi Leonard why he invested in this club.
Do it for Kwahi, everybody.
And so, speaking of that, then Matt, what do you think RIFC need to do here to get all 3 points this weekend?
Listen, if you look at what went wrong in the Birmingham game, it was what Rhode Island needs to do against Birmingham here in this match. They need to set the tempo early and silence the 17 fans that are going to be at Protective Stadium. Rhode Island FC has demonstrated time and time again that they can be one of not only the hottest teams in the Eastern Conference, but it comes by when they score first. We've seen that time and time again.
If you ain't first, you're last.
And once they go up, they can organize, they can stay compact, they can play the game in a style that suits their strengths, especially with these injuries and lack of availability. Even if it's just a 1-goal win, we've talked about the smash and grab away, do the damage, get out, and live to play another day. I think that Rhode Island's most important tactic on the night is figuring out how to prevent the transition, score first, and then just play the way you want, whether that's keeping the ball away from Birmingham or continuing to do a high press that pins Birmingham back. But that first goal's got to come. Otherwise, this is going to be a very, very difficult game for Rhode Island to get through in all 90 minutes.
Yeah. RFC is going to need to lean on recent history here, but not becoming too complacent here. Historically, they've had Birmingham's number, winning 4 of 6 meetings between the club, but one blemish came earlier this season when RFC got handed a 3-1 defeat there. So, we can't chase the game. We gave up a goal. I think that was our fastest ever given up, right? The 4 minutes
of the season or of the club's history. I don't know which, but it's definitely the season.
It's up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
we're so used to scoring the fastest goal. It's weird to have to think about who scored the fastest on us, but it's probably them now.
Yeah. So we can't chase this game. So we're going to need to have patience, right? We don't have to score immediately, but we have to keep them off of and keep them at arm's distance length here.
Yeah, and I think that's right. Like even if it's a 0-0 going into the 65th minute, that's still a better position for Rhode Island FC to be in. They just have to be the first team to score to cause Birmingham to want to try to mix things up and change their style of play, change their tactics to claw one back. When that goal happens, I don't know. It can be a very patient. I mean, we saw that Pittsburgh, it was what, a 63rd minute goal.
Yeah.
Do it again. Give us 45 minutes of figure it out, play some soccer, and then give us a goal and let us, laugh our way all the way out of the guild that night and enjoy that first 3-win streak of the season. I don't see anything wrong with that.
No, absolutely not. Looking to the ref assignments here. Head ref here is going to be Carlos Rodriguez. Assistant ref 1, Seth Martin. Assistant ref 2, Nick Goyette. And fourth official, Joshua Belk. There was so much news that I get derailed and did not have a chance to look up the history of these refs.
We'll just have Kwahi Leonard pay him off if he starts doing something wrong, because now all of our answers to all of our problems are just Kwahi Leonard. So it's going to work out perfectly.
In Kwahi we trust.
In Kwahi we trust. Now, guys, I don't know how to tell you this, guys and gals, but brace yourselves, okay? Because this may come as a shock. This game is not 7:30. This game is an 8 p.m. game, everybody.
Wait, you can do that?
Apparently, you can.
Are they in the same time zone as us?
They are in the same time zone as us. You made me think for a second there, but yes, they are.
Okay.
They better be. Otherwise, everything I'm about to say is going to be wrong. But we are back at the Guild with Defiant 1636 for the official watch party. The kickoff is at 8 p.m., so make sure you come out, support the boys in Amber and Blue, support Defiant 1636. They've been working hard all summer to make sure that you guys are loved, supported, and giving you the best soccer experience inside the home stadiums. Now give them the best away experience as they're at the Guild in Pawtucket. And it's important to remember that it is the Guild in Pawtucket, not the Guild in Providence, which has just opened up and gone from there. So anyways, it's been real. It's been fun. It has been 2 hours, Derek. You're absolutely right. I am exhausted. Oh, and signing the Clay banner. Thank you, Pawtucket J. The Clay Holstead banner will be at the Guild for a final signing. So that I don't know what happens with the next. I heard it's getting retired to the rafters. I heard we're sending it to Clay Holstead directly.
Put it in the RIFC museum.
Yeah, but whatever. It's fine. The point is, be there to sign that banner and give Clay Holstead the sending off he deserves for the FC Dallas legend that he will become. Jason, I'm so tired. My mouth hurts. In Kwahi Leonard, we trust. Get us out of here, buddy.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We'll catch you next time. Anchors up.
Anchors.
You've been listening to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show. You can follow the show on Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, and TikTok at RIFC Podcast and at Raising Anchor on Instagram. And be sure to check out and subscribe to Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you listen by searching for Raising Anchor. Make sure to check out all of our coverage over at the Blazing Musket for all your New England soccer coverage, including RAFC news at theblazingmusket.com. Fans, we thank you for listening. We ask you to be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the show. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm your main man, Juju, and on behalf of the Raising Anchor crew, goodbye for now. And as always, we are Rhode Island FC.